Schmitter, and this is my submission for Modular 5, Chapters 8 and 9 in our Interpersonal Communications class. And for Chapters 8, our first questions were to reflect on if we think we are good listeners, or in this case, if I think I am a good listener, and kind of evaluate that on that just a little bit. I would like to think I'm a good listener, as I think a lot of us do. I think I've developed quite a few good listening habits from being both in CBT and DBT for about 5 years. And if you don't know what that is both cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectal behavioral therapy. So we had a lot of focus on mindfulness, our relationships, our emotions in our relationships, and individually, and how we can focus on expressing them and getting our needs out of these relationships. I learned a lot of good skills and also innately had some. I think I am naturally kind of a empathetic listener, which can be overtaking sometimes or can be too much, which is a bad habit. I do have quite a bad habit of empathizing just a little too much, especially with new people I meet. I don't know a good balance of expressing a good amount of empathy. I think I focus on it quite a little bit and struggle with knowing when to show, that I'm relating to somebody or not. As I feel like over relating can make somebody feel a little less heard. And I really like to make people feel like they're listened to across any environment. I think I can introduce that even in a formal environment like the workplace, where I've talked about it quite a lot in my communications training. I think I became a good listener because I practiced self-reflecting on what worked good and how to enhance my relationships and kind of get into the brain of either my partner or a friend at the time. I would like to understand a pretty clear communication and make sure they felt like they're being listened to and that I would genuinely interact with what they were saying and ask reflective questions on whether it be their family or something simple, just to remind them that they are listened to, and that kind of comes hand in hand with understanding when to speak and when to listen. I think I can struggle with that in my new relationships because I don't quite know when to not talk over somebody or when to, if somebody takes it offensively when I respond to them in a similar tone of voice or relating with a similar situation. Maybe people were looking for empathy and I can sympathize rather. And I could say, oh yeah, I know how that feels. That really sucks. I think this is, well, good listening skills are sought out by employers. And that's innately said. I think that's factual here. But I recently started a new job and the training is quite lengthy. But one of the things that is very important, I feel like, is safety in the workplace. And it's very focused on nowadays in the growing work environment. I think a lot of people forget that being an active listener and interacting with it shows employers that you are capable of learning and having good work habits, practicing what you've learned, and understanding the assignment and your tasks in everyday work life. I think demonstrating that is quite important, as often you have to learn. In my case, I have to learn. I'm a technician, and I'm learning a lot of machines, so I have to show that I know how to properly use these machines. A little lighting went out here, such as I don't know if anybody's heard of OSHA 10 standards, but OSHA 10 classes are quite lengthy and show quite a bit, and it is quite excruciatingly painful to sit through, as some places require it every year. But I think it's important to show that you're willing to put your foot forward for work safety and group safety, because one safe individual means that there's probably multiple where there's slack and an imbalance in the workplace. And for our chapter 9, we were asked to reflect on a time where we had ineffective communication in a relationship. And this is quite a lengthy story, so I'm going to try to talk fast here and it is quite personal, but I feel like it was a good example, and kind of it would be easy to express how I reflected on my own emotions and had a good outcome from it. Uh, about a year ago, I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, and we mutually kind of came to an agreement, per se at the time, to move out and go through college and kind of do our own thing for a while. And it was quite chaotic at the time. We had a lot of emotional problems. At the time, I was working, going to school, and felt like I had quite a lot of responsibilities at home that I wasn't quite willing to even talk about how I felt about it, because I felt so burnt out and I felt like I should be able to handle all of it. I neglected to express how I was feeling, and became quite shut off because I was down in the dumps for quite a while, and I could recognize and reflect that I was shut off from her, and that I do appreciate her as a friend. We are friends now, and we're even going to be roommates pretty soon because we've had quite a long friendship before a relationship, and I feel like it took some good, how should I say, evaluation between the both of us, reflecting, as I mentioned so many times now, and being able to understand when the other person should be listened to, as you're talking about high emotions. I think it became important to share not just how I felt in one instance, or say, I was depressed, but rather talk about how our individual experiences kind of reflected us, whether it would have been in a fight or maybe a previous discussion we had that I didn't express, I didn't agree with it, and kind of just went on with working and doing my school and not expressing that. I felt very burnt out, and I thought that wasn't normal. We had to accept responsibility for both of our actions, and I felt very guilty, and I had expressed that as a feeling. As I just said, I felt, which I feel like is a very important separation here in everyday life. I think, or I feel, rather than I know. And I feel can be different in a little bit of a more of emotional thinking rather than rational or overly logical. I think I feel like we had a pretty good expression. I think, actually, we had a pretty good expression of talking about when we knew each other was acting about something. I picked this example of this, pretty personal relationship because I feel as though we discussed pretty in depth when another person would have been acting or brushing over one another's emotions, or maybe individually, like me, I spent a lot of time isolating and self-reflecting too much, to the point where I felt guilty, and I had to come out afterwards and express that again through my feelings and accept the responsibility, as we again mentioned in this question here, for my actions, how I felt at the time, how I neglected to recognize how I felt at the time, and how closed off it made our relationship. At the end of it, I think it's pretty good to reflect on here, because we had to know when to speak of it. We took quite a lot of time, with months in between, or maybe had some serious conversations, and as friends we knew when each other had a good limit of things getting awkward, or being able to kind of pick each other up through the process of talking through it. And I think it went really well, and I know this isn't quite an example of ineffective communication, but it was for quite a while, and I think it is a good demonstration for how these things could really help a relationship in general, in just about any situation where you are expressing your feelings or emotions. And thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing your responses. I know this has been quite a long response, so thank you very much if you're here the whole time.